Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I think I encourage everyone to do video call, and I think you guys are not doing. That's okay. That's your call. But remember that you need to demonstrate a good leadership quality, right? So I see Prafulla does the video most of the time. Juhi does it as well. And I think rest of the people I'm encouraging because we are really going to pick up people for the projects who are very, very presentable from that perspective. So, okay. Remember, that's one of the attribute we look into whenever we feel we're going to put people into projects. Okay. So just wanted to make aware of that. So in the interest of time, let's start. Okay. So the idea for the session is actually talking a little bit about IT audit. Okay. So we are going to record the session. And I think the reason we are going to talk about IT audit is primarily anything we are doing in this space is actually because of some IT audit in the past. Okay. So let me explain how the overall process works. Suppose you got your salary, say $100 a month, and you felt that actually I'm a very conscious person and I'm going to save $20 of that. What sort of savings you guys do? Who does what? So what do you do with savings? Some people put it into the bank. I think some. Is there anyone who put it into like a share markets, invest on companies? Is there any investor in the group? Are there any investor in the group? No.
I do with the help of my dad sometimes.
Good, good. Okay, that's great. We got at least one investor in the group that does that demonstrate Pulkita got a lot of money. Okay, but
No,
we're
I
gonna talk about that
usually
later.
go for IPOs, not investing in that.
That's okay. Whatever
Yeah.
you do, I think you kind of decide to go and you got some money. Okay, you thought I'm going to invest that money to secure my future, right? So you
Yeah.
possibly have an option to say I can invest in Uber. Okay, I can use in Airbnb. I don't know. I can invest in Facebook or I can invest in Google. Okay, again, look like how technology has become like every name which comes into our mind is actually a technology company. I was talking to a head of, I think, program at HSBC, I think 2, 3 years back, and he mentioned that how in the world every company is becoming a technology company at the end of the day. Okay. So suppose you decide, okay, I'm going to invest in 4 of this company. What you usually look into? You usually look into the company's profile. Okay. You look into how they are doing, how their trades are doing. Okay, how their what is their shares are doing and all. And then the other thing you look into annual report. Does anyone aware of annual report what it is? It's a report each listed company has to publish every year, that how their finance accounts are doing. So we also produce our annual report. I think last year we said we had 180,000 pound in, I think not 1.2 million, 180,000 pound in revenue. um, I think our profit was 7,500 pound, and that was profit. There was a cost and everything, right? So whenever you look into a company and their annual report, you get their financial statement. Okay, a significant part of annual report is their financial statement. Okay, what is their financial statement? It is nothing but their balance sheet, their trial balance, sorry, balance sheet, their trial balance, the profit and loss statement. Okay, the income and expense statement, cash flow statement, all of that. Okay, usually you look into the financial statement and you started to understand what was the revenue of the company and what was the profit, because the profit will define the dividend return on your investment. Okay, so whenever you look into annual report where there's a financial statement is a big component, who prepared that financial statement for an organization? It's prepared by independent auditors. Okay, so that means someone independent comes to that organization, look into the financial statement, all the transaction over the year, and then go and produce that statement for the client. Okay. So now these independent auditors for very big companies, do you know who they are? They're like PwC, Deloitte, possibly KPMG, EY, and then Mazars, Grant Thornton, BDO, RSM. There are hundreds and hundreds of auditors in the world, and these are some of the bigger ones, the world's top, maybe top 10, 8 of top 10 bigger independent auditor. They come in the organization, they look into the all transaction the company has for that period. The company might be having a manufacturing function, okay, company having a procurement function, company having a project function, they have HR, they have payroll, they have finance department, they have marketing, right? Finance, marketing, they have sales, they have all these departments. There are millions and millions of transactions. This independent auditor comes in to look into those millions and millions of transactions, prepare the financial statement and give an assurance, right, on that financial statement that it is correct or it is not. Okay. So now consider a very big company. Okay. So consider, I don't know if, does anyone know Shell? It's, I think, one of the biggest energy company in the world, headquartered in Netherlands. Okay. It's maybe, I don't know, it's maybe $100 billion company. So definitely, I hope you understand how big they are. Whenever I think Shell is audited, I don't know, I know Shell is audited by EY. So when EY goes and audit Shell, they look into the revenue and they say this year they made $3 billion profit. Okay, so now I know Shell runs on SAP. Okay, so EY comes, and when EY comes and asks for, give me all the transaction from marketing department, finance, manufacturing, procurement, project, HR, payroll, sales, anything they ask, they get the data from SAP environment. Okay, so when the EY comes in, they started doing financial audit. Okay, and they say, give us all the transaction from SAP. So now some wise men in the past, or maybe some women as well, have asked, hang on, we are getting all of this data from SAP. Okay, but how do we ensure that this data, because all of their financial audit, the base for the document is the transaction from SAP, right? But how do we ensure the data coming out from SAP is actually right? No one is playing with the data, updating the data. Maybe there was a 100 million bonus paid to Arun Majumdar, but whenever we get the bonus data for financial audit, someone has removed this data. Someone has actually excluded a logic by saying, suppose they are running an SAP report, say all bonus, okay, but in that all bonus report, someone excluded Arun Majumdar as an employee, so that this $1 million payment for bonus doesn't come into that all bonus report, right? So that means when financial auditor are asking for all transaction from the SAP system, they need to make sure the integrity of their data. Okay, so for the financial audit, they're asking a lot of information. And by lot, I mean that whenever they ask for journal, okay, for Shell, they get millions and millions of journals. So for these millions of data, it is not possible to manually check each million of each transaction from that pile of million to make sure that transaction is accurate. Otherwise, they'll take 10 years to do 1 year audit, and then they'll every 9 year will pile that audit, right? So they need to make sure all transactions are coming from this SAP are complete, are accurate, okay, and have integrity. Okay, that means no one has played with this data, and when the auditors are getting the data from the system, they can demonstrate the completeness and accuracy and integrity of the data for any data they get from the SAP system. In that period, that IT audit was born. Okay, so that means someone has to do an audit on SAP first. If my IT audit is passed, that I can demonstrate I have good audit controls onto SAP, then my financial auditor would rely on all transactions from SAP. If my IT audit has failed, okay, then, okay, if my IT audit is passed, this is called controls based audit. So that means my financial auditor will rely on all transaction coming from SAP. If my IT audit is failed, okay, suppose I could not demonstrate the right people have the right access, the change is managed and the operation is managed, in that case, this will be called substantive audit. Okay, what does that mean is, for the controls based audit, you have taken an approach of testing a control. Testing a control means you're not going to check everything. You are going to cherry pick, random pick on certain objects, and if they are okay, we are going to say okay. Okay, so what does that mean? Suppose, sorry. let's assume that, let's say one of our employee, say Venkat in the past, right? Someone knew Venkat. Suppose Venkat say he's working, but he's never working. Okay, he's kind of managing his truck business. Okay, so we said we are going to audit if Venkat is really working with us. We said um, we are going to check randomly, and we're going to send someone to his house to make sure that he is working, right? So this is called controls based audit. Suppose we send in within a week a person 3 times very randomly, someone like Monday 12 o'clock, Tuesday 3 o'clock, Wednesday we didn't send someone, Thursday we didn't send someone, Friday we send it 8 o'clock in the morning. If if he was working all of those 3 incidents randomly, then we can conclude based on our random sampling that yes, he is a diligent worker and he is working. Okay, suppose we send those worker and those are the 3 unfortunate incidents, he was not working for various circumstances, but he was working on the other time, but the control will fail and we'll get a conclusion actually maybe Venkat is really a hardworking person, but the 3 controls audit we did, he was not working, so our conclusion will be that he doesn't work diligently, right? So controls based audit is basically just checking some transaction randomly, and if they pass, that means we say it's passed by the modeling behind that controls or the sampling methodology. Okay, so I hope so far is clear that why we need IT audit. We need IT audit to give integrity to that ERP system so that financial auditor can start relying and putting their assurance on the transaction to complete the financial audit process, which is going to prepare the financial statement, which is going to land into the annual report, which will be reviewed by the investor whenever they are going to invest in the company. Okay, so Pulkita mentioned she is an interested person about IPO. Whenever companies goes IPO, they actually put more care on that, because if you are Tata Group or you are if you are all of these, right, then your credential in the market is established not for 1 year 2 year but for 15 20 30 year for some of the companies like Google and all. But suppose there's a company called TransferWise, which is we use for salary payment, right? So for that company is going through IPO, for them, because they'll be preparing their annual report for the first time, since they're going for an IPO, investor will look into the company more grilling way. So that means they have to put more effort into producing their financial statement as clean as possible, because when auditor will do all transaction audit and give an opinion about financial statement, if there are problems they'll mention on the audit report. Okay, it is like an exam report. Do you want your mom and your dad to find out what you have not done well into the exam? Right, definitely not. That's why you study hard, or at least some of you studied hard. Is the same thing. Companies really work hard. They really make sure that auditor should not find anything into the financial statement. IT auditor should not be able to find anything in the say anything in the IT audit. So from all of those perspectives, companies usually invest into software like GRC, enterprise risk management, identity and access management, and all of that. Okay, so now you know that at least within Oracle GRC module, we implement access control, we implement financial control, we implement HCM control, and then all of them start sitting together into the financial reporting control module. Now, hopefully that will give you a little bit clarity that why a GRC project is such important for the client, because by this GRC investment, they can pass that IT audit. Eventually, that has an impact on financial audit. Eventually, that has an impact on the financial statement. That has an impact on the annual report, and that has an impact on the investor or the shareholder who is going to invest into that company. Okay, both individual investor like Pulkita and someone else in the group, also big house. Suppose there is a group of investor, they're investing. There are equity partner, equity group in the world who are investing into company, buying company and selling company. They'll invest. Okay, Aqua Power, one of our clients, recently got acquired significant stake by the Public Investment Fund. It's a royal fund in Saudi Arabia. So before investing, they start looking into company's profile, their risk management and all. So a significant reason why Aqua Power implementing GRC to make sure that they can demonstrate to their investor that they are a good company to invest. Okay, so I'm going to take a pause here and maybe take any question from anyone. Are there any question from people, or people understand a little bit around IT audit and how that's related to GRC, how that relate to financial audit, how that relate to annual accounts, how that relate to investor, and why, what is the end objective client company is trying to achieve when they're planning to implement a GRC project. Is there any question from anyone? No? Okay, glad. Okay, so let me go back there. So now I think let's now talk about the world. Okay, so this is my world. I call it GSA. Okay, so GSA is not. Please, Avi, go on.
Yeah. If what happens if the IT audit gets failed, then what happens with the process?
So what happened? What usually is a good question. So suppose for the Shell audit fees around I think 119 million, not dollar. It's in euro. Okay. So Shell audit fee for EY is 119 million euro. With an assumption, IT audit will pass and EY will do controls-based audit. Okay. If IT audit has failed, then the company have to do substantive audit. That means they not only rely any data coming from SAP blindly, they have to do additional procedure to make sure that they validated that integrity of the data one object at a time. Suppose they're using 3,000 SAP reports to do the audit, because for $100 billion company, you have a huge amount of data you need to process for the audit, right? For each of these report, if IT audit is passed, they don't have to do additional procedure. They can rely on the data and start performing the audit. But the moment it's failed, they have to do independence 3,000 procedure for each of these record coming from the system. Do you know what this costs? That costs additional money. So in normal circumstances, when EY can spend or bill their client 120 million euro for that, this would typically go say at 200 million euro for the audit, because and now the moment EY charge 80 million euro extra and Shell say, oh, why you are charging me extra? They say, oh no, your IT audit has failed. So now we have to do additional procedure of all the audit we are doing. And because of that, you have to charge you. So now I hope you understand the implementation of GRC helping to pass the IT audit has an impact on the cost as well. Okay, but the company which we are targeting, this 80 million cost is nothing to them compared to the damage they're going to get into the reputation, into the shareholder market. Because their stock goes 1% down because of a bad annual report coming in, the loss will be billions. So for Shell, if the share stock first go one down, it will be £1 billion loss, okay, onto their overall net value of the company. So you understand 1 billion compared to 80 million euro is nothing. Okay, so they are doing GRC not for saving the cost for the audit side. Some smaller companies does, but they're doing it to keep their sales, they keep their share price index very high. Okay, not giving investor a reason to distrust. Okay, suppose tomorrow suppose someone is auditing Shell and they found out $200,000 of fraud payments have happened, right? For $200,000 for a 100 billion company is actually negligible. But if you put it into here, tomorrow the investor will think, oh my God, they cannot control small money. What if there is a £2 billion fraud tomorrow? Okay, and investor started taking away their money. Okay, so I hope GRC investment is there's a one element called compliance part. There's another element is saving the audit fees as well, but that's actually possibly like a second tier company. Top tier company do not care about 80 million euro because they care about a £1 billion valuation. They do not want to vanish £1 billion overnight. Okay, and also now you know that investors, the Shell is publicly traded. Suppose Abhi own say 50% of Shell. Suppose, okay, so he own $50 billion. So okay, no, let's say Abhi own 1% of Shell. Okay, so Abhi is a billionaire now because his portfolio at Shell is 1 billion. If tomorrow Shell's value go down 1%, then Abhi's property become, or Abhi's asset become 990 million. Okay, would Abhi be happy? From a billionaire bucket, he came from millionaire. So he, being a shareholder of the company, has 1%. He can drive the company. Guys, you have to invest in GRC, because if you do not invest, if there is a fraud happen, there is an extra audit fee. If the valuation of the company go down, then my money go down. Now I believe you can understand not only from the prospective investor, but a pressure from that existing investor as well, saying you have to do the right thing, you have to implement GRC and all of that. Have you got that point?
Yes, sir. Arun, one more thing. Can you go back onto the sheet, please?
Yes, please. Yeah, go on.
Yeah, you are saying that SAP would check all these 3,000 invoices or the controls coming it from here. So these are based on those model audit objects which we found out in that list, right?
No. I think what I meant to say was there are 3,000 types of information you are extracting from SAP for your audit. Some of them will come from your GRC software, but most of them will coming from other parts of the software, okay, the ERP software. But GRC will provide the integrity of the overall solution, that the solution is untouched and unharmed, and someone, because if tomorrow everyone has an admin access and you cannot log in what these people are doing, they might go tomorrow, pay themselves £1 million and then delete that transaction, and the transaction would never be found again, right? So you need to identify who are the admin people, what they can do, how you are monitoring them. So GRC controls is kind of giving you the guidance, that wrapper around the ERP to make sure those transactions are valid.
And during this IT audit is included in the financial audit basis, or it's a separate audit which is being charged?
No, that's an interesting question again. So let me talk a little bit about that. So usually, suppose you're doing a $100 audit tender. Okay, suppose tomorrow we decided we need an auditor. We go and tendering, and 5 auditor will come and say we'll audit you. And say one of them, I think we selected someone. They say we are going to charge you $100. Usually, out of that $100, 10 to 20% fees are already included for IT audit. Okay. So IT audit actually has become an integral part of financial audit. Okay. So globally, financial audit is around $250 billion market. So that means automatically the IT audit is becoming at least $25 to $50 billion market globally, significantly delivered by Big Four, and then some of them delivered by, I think, this second tier firm, Mazar, GT, and there's a all long tail of very small firm who does that. So we are doing an IT audit for one of our partner firm called FSNM, which Nisar works for, and we're delivering an IT audit. But IT audit is usually these days included into the financial audit scope, and which costs somewhere from 10 to 20% of the overall audit fees.
Arun, one more thing. If an IT audit is done by an organization and the financial audit is done by the same organization, isn't it a conflict of interest?
No. They're usually done by same organization, because by understanding what they're going to check in the IT audit, okay, that will drive what they need to check additionally for the financial audit. Okay, this is like a same team. So it's the challenge is, suppose it's delivered by 2 different organizations, then the methodology for the IT audit may not fit into the methodology for the financial audit side, what they're looking for. Since they come from same organization, they have the same methodology. They say if this part of IT audit is nothing but a list of control, and I'm going to talk about that, what control there are. But if they say, if we check this control IT audit, and if they pass, then only we can rely on the financial audit part. Otherwise, they have to go into the substantive part. So they usually, definitely not usually, they're 100% delivered by the same company. But a lot of clients these days are pre-auditing themselves, okay? Because now you understand that how serious IT audit is the gateway of the problem. If this fails, then everything fails apart, right? Everything we discussed on above is actually falling apart. So they have a vested interest to make sure they are prepared for the auditor's IT audit. So they ask us, or companies like us or small company, to do a mini audit, do a mock audit. And then they pass it on to people to say, okay, we audited ourselves, we found out issue, we fixed them, so the auditor can come and cannot find them out. And I think we are planning to get into that area in future, where will be kind of doing a bit of mock audit for some of our clients to say, okay, we'll help you to understand, or we'll help you to deliver the audit so that you are prepared for the surprises coming in from your auditor. They're already prepared for that. Okay. So now let me move on. So I hope now let me break the world into 2 parts. Okay, this is the borderline for us. This is Germany, Switzerland, and Austria. Okay, so if I go into map, let's see if I can demonstrate you this one more interestingly. Okay, let's see. So 1 second, it's just loading. Let's go for Germany. Okay, let this page load. So what I mean by GSA is basically once you see this is somewhere Germany is right. You can see this is Germany. Okay, so let me close this one. This is my border of the world. Okay, anything on the left side of the border is very mature on compliance and security. Each market, UK, say Ireland, France, Spain, Portugal, Canada, US, they have their own regulation, what they need their companies to have if the companies are listed in that country. The more you go from the right side of GSA, like you go into Middle East and Egypt and possibly Africa, India, Asia Pac, China, I think Australia and New Zealand are considered on the left side, okay? But the more you go on the right, the primary requirement for a GRC software is basically, okay, so if you go on the left side of the GSA, the primary requirements are coming from of GRC software is because of compliance reason. There is a SOX compliant in US, there is a HIPAA compliance in US, there is a GFF in UK, there's an FRC compliance in UK, there's a million of compliance in Netherlands, there's a compliance in Belgium, there's a compliance in Luxembourg and all of that on the left side of GSA. On the right side of the GSA is the primary, this is basically the primary requirement for a GRC software, primary requirement for a GRC software. The more you go on the right side, okay, this will become because why you are investing into GRC? Because our auditor have said so. Okay, that means any company, any target market you want us to pick it up. UAE, Qatar, Saudi, that's kind of our target market. APAC, China. You ask them why you are implementing GRC. If you ask an US client, they say we have a SOX compliance. We are in healthcare. We have HIPAA compliance. We have to regulate. If it's in UK publicity, they have a GFA framework. If you ask a client from Middle East, they say, oh, our auditors have said so. Okay. So now who these auditors are? They are the IT auditors. What they do IT audit testing. So that's why whenever we implement this 4 module for any countries who are on the left side of GSA, we look into more mature approach where we look into compliance side, what compliance they need to adhere to and all of that. We kind of try to map these processes with the compliance and then deliver those projects. The more you go on the right side, you just look into, okay, what do your auditor want? Okay, let us understand that and we'll help you to build those control into this module. So this is kind of, I think, the driver for a GRC project, why they have licensed for the product, why they are investing into the implementation, because their auditor have said so. And these auditors are primarily the IT auditors, where they have audited, they told them, guys, you are crap, everything and you fail, you need to have a GRC system. Okay, I'm going to talk about ERM and IDM later into some of the other call, but focus on the GRC, which is the area which we are in, which is basically all the other modules we are running. Okay, so I think the last thing on the IT audit I want to mention, take maybe 10-15 minutes of time. What is this IT audit? What do we check in that IT audit? So Shweta is now delivering one IT audit for us, for a client. We in the IT audit, we have 3 areas primarily. Okay, one thing we call IT general controls, one area. Okay, the second area is business controls. Okay, the third area is segregation of duty. Okay, so I believe we all understand what is segregation of duty is. This is basically our AAC module. So whenever IT auditor comes in, they have their own tool where they actually check the SOD and they just match the results with your result, your organization result. If they have AAC, a lot of clients do not have GRC software. They rely on their auditor record. But you remember, if this SOD fails, the whole IT audit fail and the whole downstream effect onto your annual report and investor relations and prospective investor and existing investor, right? Even if one of these components fail. So companies implement AAC, access control, to stay one step ahead of their auditor. So they understand where their weaknesses are and they understand where they can go wrong, so that able to prepare that before auditor comes in. Business control are nothing but a combination of AFC control and inherent control. Okay, so Shweta has worked a little bit on inherent control. Inherent control is nothing but the control which are configured within the ERP box. So okay, so for MTN, for Aqua Power, everyone is implementing ERP. Okay, and then they are implementing GRC on the top. Okay, the inherent controls are nothing but the controls which are available within that ERP environment. GRC controls like AFC as a top up on top of that, because not every company buys AFC or AAC module licenses, but usually they're buying ERP. With that box, they're getting some control and which they can use. So business control, ITGC is a combination of also, I think, various. I think you can use some AFC control, some AAC control, and also some other controls. Okay, some other controls. Okay, so this is kind of the mapping around that, and then the entire IT process, IT audit process is actually, if I merge here and do this, so the entire IT process is actually overseen or overarched by this FRC module. So now you have some controls here: AFC control, AAC, and other control. Business control, you have AFC and inherent control. In SOD, you have AAC. In FRC, all of you know what you can do. You can do those assessment for those controls. And that's how the whole FRC maps back with the IT audit process. Then the IT audit process maps with the financial audit process. The financial audit process then impacts our financial statement. The financial statement impacts annual report. Annual reports impact existing investor and our prospective investor. Okay. Sounds good. That you understand now why this GRC is important, specifically on the left side of the GSA. The driver is compliance. Our regulator have said it. Yes, our auditor have said it sometime. It's a combination of that. But the more you go into our target market like Middle East, APAC, China, it's primarily about our auditor have said to invest us into GRC software. Okay, pick up Aqua Power, little bit of MTN. DP World, Petrofac, Sidra Medicine, any other new project have been recently involved, or some of you have been involved. The primary reason is so our auditor has told us to implement that. ADQ, their audit committee has given them a mandate to implement GRC software. That's why they're talking to us. So hope that's clear about what this GRC part is and how that is relevant for the IT audit, and we are able to map that back, and then we go in from there top. Okay, and then let me just talk a little bit about, since there is a bit of time, IT general controls. Let me just break it. We usually call it ITGCs. Okay, there's the various names. Some call, I think, IT general controls. Some call, some people can say general controls of IT. There's a different term, but usually this looks into 4 areas: manage access, okay, manage change, manage operations, and third party monitoring controls. Okay, so manage access is, what does that mean? Is it's actually access management. Who has what access? Okay, who has what access? Okay, manage change means that the changes are authorized or not. Okay, so that means tomorrow if you want to go and change your salary, okay, is it an authorized transaction? Tomorrow you want to kind of exclude you from a report, okay, is it an authorized transaction? Tomorrow you want to go and delete a log, is it an authorized transaction or not? Manage operations means that there are multiple processes running to keep the software alive, to keep the ERP alive. At this operation, at these processes behind the scene are getting managed by someone, right? For example, say you might have, you create purchase order for an organization, right? And then you post that PO data into GL, and it's a daily data sync. Okay, if that sync is broken, then the PO data is not migrating to GL. So anything you're looking into general ledger is not reflecting the right information for the organization. So you need to make sure that sync is correct, who has setting it up. If it fails, there is a process to rectify that. If there's a process to rerun it, there's a process to check the completeness of the data. So all of that we look into manage operation. We look into, I think in a non-cloud environment, we have to look into a physical security of a data center, right? So suppose the data center is in, I don't know, maybe in Aberdeen. I've reviewed so many data center for physical security audit. So where the data center is it cold enough? Is there a locked gate in? Do you register everyone going in and out of data center? Because if data center is down tomorrow, your entire business is down. No one can enter a data into the system, right? So you check into if there is a fire extinguisher there, if there is humidity controller, if there is insulation properly available, are there any obstruction to the fire exit door or not? Okay, so we used to review a lot of physical security on the on-premise days. Okay, now you understand everything is on the cloud, and because of the cloud, we do not have a control on this operation. We rely on our cloud providers. If you're using AWS, you rely on how AWS manage their data center. If you are using Azure, then you rely on Microsoft, how they are managing the data center. But in the previous world, when a lot of things were on-premise, there was a lot of opportunity for people to travel for just to kind of check physical security. I know people have been to Bahamas and Cayman Island and Luxembourg just to check the physical security of the server, which is not a lot of relevant these days. And third-party monitoring control is very simple. To run your ERP and software, you provide, you give contract to various organizations, right? Various company. You give it to Oracle, you give it to SAP, you give it to PwC, you give it to Tata Group. This is basically making sure what control you have on those organizations who are managing your databases, who are managing your application, who are providing support, because those people might have additional elevated access and you need to control them a bit differently because their access is needed to provide the support to your business. Okay, so you need to still manage those accesses, but differently rather than business people who have access. So these are ITGC areas: manage access management, change management, operations management, third-party monitoring control. Business controls are around your business processes. So we go back on the top. Your business process can be marketing, finance, manufacturing, procurement, sales, project, HR, payroll, time and labor, health and safety, everything. So business controls are nothing but those controls around those processes. Some could be implemented in AFC, some could be coming out of the box in ERP, some could be manual control. Because if your health and safety, that's very manual, there's no system for that possibly. And then SOD controls is actually coming from your ASE module for us. And SAP GRC, there is a, I think if once we get into SAP business, and I will hope some of you will work, there is a module called SAP AC, which is nothing but access control. Oracle call it advanced access control. SAP call it AC, which is their SOD module. Okay. So now let me kind of quickly wrap up by saying let's go from bottom to the top. So whenever an IT audit happens, they look into IT general controls, usually business control and SOD. Whenever they look into ITGC, they look into access management, change management, operations management, third-party monitoring control. For us, how they can be implemented by using AAC, where we wanted to check into some managed access, right? And AFC, some change management and audit management, right? And other controls like say manage operation, third-party, physical security type of control. Then the second area is business control, which is nothing but a combination of manual control, which is outside Oracle, and then inherent control, which is basically which comes as a part of your ERP procurement, and then AFC for clients who are buying those additional GRC licenses. SOD, very straightforward. AAC. FRC then oversees the entire control framework by enabling people to do assessment. They do quarterly assessment, they do monthly assessment, they do weekly assessment based on the control frequency. Then if IT audit is failed, okay, if say let's talk about IT failed, then the auditor will do substantive audit. That has a cost, and that has an impact on the financial statement as well. Because suppose Shell, they invest billions of dollars and euro every year on IT. If you tell them that your IT audit has failed, consider the CIO is going to a board meeting and the board will ask, we give you 1 billion euro every year to run the IT function, still your IT audit has failed. So understand the reputation for the CIO, okay? If he is fired, will he get, because he is maybe earning millions of euros in salary, right? For us as being a CIO of a cell. If he is fired tomorrow for failing IT audit, would he get a job for another top companies where they'll hire him and say, oh, he was a CIO, was not able to deliver IT audit at all for Shell. Would he be a good fit for us? So if IT audit failed, understand the impact on individual people as well, and that will help you to understand the buying motivation for CIOs about those GRC software. If that passed, then auditor can rely on transaction coming up from the SAP system and can deliver their financial audit. And then financial audit goes into annual report, which is very important for prospective investor and current investor who are already invested their money in that company. Does that give you a bit of flavor that what it is all about, that why we are getting so much traction around GRC software? What are the driver for the client to go and implement GRC software? And whenever we are implementing that, how we are touching actually ourselves directly to the financial auditor, the IT auditor, and then from there it's going into the financial statement relating to the annual report, and how that your work or our work is very, very relevant, and actually helping another, like one person yourself, a company like yourself, to invest into that company by looking into the financial statement or annual report for that client. Okay, I hope it is a bit clear. So I don't know if there is any question. I'm happy to take any question. I'm going to stay on this call for maybe another 5 minutes or so if people are here. And then I think we'll do the same thing. We'll go for 5 bullet and maybe a 1 minute video on anything on IT audit. Let's go for IT audit so that we are all very clear about what IT audit is. And then I think, as you saw, we have started publishing a lot of video and we'll do. And I believe that's going to be a great marketing strategy for us to kind of really putting a lot of interesting small messages to say, because yesterday when I was listening to COSO framework, I really got very, very interested because everyone pick up a different perspective. Some people talk about 5 component, which COSO framework. Some people talk about the 3 objective it has. So it is very interesting, and I think we want that diversity of thinking, that what the session for today meant for you. So very easy task. One email about 5 bullets, send it to Juhi, copy me in if you want to. Juhi is going to consolidate that. Another thing is, Juhi, we got at least 8 people on the call. A 1 minute plus video from everyone to say what IT audit is, and specifically why that is related to our GRC initiative, which we are doing as well. Okay, any question from anyone before we part? I'm going to stay on this call for another 5 minutes or so you can ask any other question, any other project related question. But any other question before we let most of the people go? And did you find that session helpful? Because we are planning to run more fundamental session about what is GRC and why it is important, because I believe some of you have become, like, I know Alberto, maybe Pulkita, Abhi, all of you have become a technical champion to say how things can be done in the system, but you're possibly doing it without knowing exactly what you are doing. That's okay. But also we just need to make sure that you have the fundamental clarity as well. Most of you will not work in a project without any supervision, but it will help you to understand that conversation a bit more once we get into a lot of client conversation. Okay. Okay, so if you don't have any more question, I think I'm here on the call for the next sort of 5 minutes or so. So ask me a question about anything else, or you can drop out. So I think, as you remember the task, Juhi, we got at least Abhishek, Alberto, Abhi, Firas, yourself, Prafulla, Pulkita, and Shweta. So just expecting 5 bullet points for everyone and a small 1 minute video, and that's going to be an interesting. I believe they're going to give at least Pulkita a lot of content to start posting into LinkedIn as well. So Pulkita, you can start picking up the unlisted video content for us and start putting it into LinkedIn. A lot of video content should go there as well. I believe it will immensely help you in terms of getting the regular content, because video is very nice format of consume rather than you put a document, because I can guarantee you no one even internally has read Sneha's document. Possibly 90% people have not. They liked it and commented. But video 1 minute, people usually pause and they try to understand that person as well. So they might have taken a pause to watch that 1 minute video. Okay, all good then. Okay, so thank you for dialing in, and then we'll speak to you very, very soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Shweta.
Thank you, Arjun.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Hi, Arun. Did you
Yes,
get a chance to have a look on my OTBI reports?
No. Did Samson has looked into the reports?
No, I didn't receive any feedback. I'll get in touch with him today then.
Okay, please.
Okay.
Cool. Thank you, Avi.